This week, Absolute Batman takes center stage as a 30-day blockbuster that's still on fire, redefining the Dark Knight's legacy. Plus, two indie titles, both optioned for film and television. The Beauty brings a chilling tale where perfection has a price. And Four Kids Walk into a Bank delivers a clever, action packed heist story about kids way in over their heads. All this and more. So get ready for all the details of these must read comics, all in this week's show. It is now time to go over 30, 60, 90. Here we go. 30, 60, 90. This is the part of the show where I look at books that were number one 30 days ago, 60 days ago, and 90 days ago. The books you're about to see here were all number one. They were the top book of its time. We're going to start with the first book on this list that was number one just a month ago, and that is Absolute Batman number one. This book was number one back in November 4th of 2024. That was week one of November. The top sales of the book was at $133 at 9.8. At the time, it had a weekly unit sale of 114 sales, and it had a growth of 5%. Now, it was also tracking the previous month, so that's why the numbers are a little different. The raw was at $24 near mint, while slabs were going for about $110. So the top weekly sale was $133 at a 9.8. However, the average was $110. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to go into cover price, and we're going to take a look at where it stands today. This book is still hot, only a month later, so it hasn't been that long. It's still hot today, and we're going to take a look at it through cover price. We have cover price information here for Absolute Batman number one. The last recorded sales for this book was at $27, and that was a near mint raw copy. The most common raw still goes for about $68, so you can see that the price is going down for this book. However, a 9.8, the most common slab, is at $108. As you know, there's plenty of variants for this book. We're not going to go and talk a little bit about those variants. Instead, what we're going to look at is what is its top performing metrics. So its highest known value was sold back in November 24th, so not that long ago, at $140, and it has a total recorded sales of 1,204 sales. Now, I spoke to the guys at Cover Price about this current trend, which is 18.17%. They're actually talking about changing those metrics a little bit, so we're not going to really focus on those metrics. Instead, what we're going to take a look at really is how this book has really changed. As you could see, the book, it's still on a level playing field. It hasn't dropped. It hasn't really gone much higher. The raws are actually dipping a little bit because the supply and demand are being met because this is the highest selling book of the year. So let's take a look first at the sales data. When it comes to the raw books, the most popular one is Near Mint. This is a new book, so of course Near Mint is going to be the highest ranking. However, Near Mint Plus there's some companies that will say that their book is Near Mint Plus. That doesn't really reflect much. It's the same as what could potentially be a 9.8 candidate, a 9.9 candidate, or a 10. They can't really give you that it's a 10 because they have to grade it for that. But what we could see here is that this book continues to sell and sell out. The metrics here said $29. So we're seeing that average, about that $25 to $30 average for Near Mint. Yes, there have been sales as well. There was a reported $130 for a raw. I think someone way overpaid for that book. That actually happened today. Wow, that's a bad sale. But if people want it, they're even selling very fine copies as well of this book, and they're going for about $14. If you look at the slabs, there's not that many slabs right now, but they're starting to come in. There's 22 slabs, so it's actually performing a lot better than I expected. And these slabs are all 9.8 slabs, and they're going for 115. I see $100. I see $191. So we're talking about $90 to $120 in average for the slabs for Absolute Batman. There's no stopping Absolute Batman. Our next book up is The Beauty. Some of you might be familiar with The Beauty. Some of you might not be familiar with The Beauty. But The Beauty was a book that came out a while back in 2015. If you ever seen the movie The Substance, it's very similar in concept. And while I gather this information up in cover price, I'll give you the lowdown of the book. It came out in 2015 for Image Comics. This book was #1 back in October 7th. The top weekly sale of that time was $115. Sold about 35 units, which had a growth of 164%. The raw most common was $8 at a very fine. And a slab was going for about $82 for a 9.8. This story was picked up. It's been optioned for a TV series. It's a very interesting concept. I'll just go ahead and read the synopsis. It says, a pilot season, winter returns. Modern society is obsessed with outward beauty. What if there was a way to guarantee you could become more and more beautiful every day? What if it was a sexually transmitted disease? In the world of the beauty, physical perfection is obtainable. The vast majority of the population has taken advantage of it, but detectives Foster and Vaughn will soon discover it comes at a terrible price. Let's take a look at how it looks as of today in cover price. We're going to be looking at cover A. The last recorded sale of this book was at $15. It was no grade. It was a raw. The book is tracking about $35 average, and the slabs are actually $97. So we're having a dip in this book. This book has dipped a bit in the 60-day period. So it's trending downward. If we look at the sales, the last high known sale was back in September 30th at $115. There's been a recorded 129 sales total of this book. From that, you had 124 raws and just 5 slabs were sold. If we look at the sales data of this book, I don't believe it's been selling. The last sale was that no grade, but if you could see the near mints, the last sale was back in October, and the very fine, the last sales were back in September. You can see it from this information. As far as the slab goes, the last slab was back in that September time period. You're going to see that this book has not performed. That means this book is going to trickle downward. We haven't had sales since October for this book, and the only real sales were going on in that no grade portion for these books because people still are curious. If you're interested in picking up this book and then the potential of the option is there, then pick it up. There were slabs sold. Look at this. Back in July, a slab was sold for $27. A few years ago, it was at $24. So this book is up and down. But the last recorded high sale was $115. That was in September. So is The Beauty still on track? I think the popularity of this book has dipped. Like most option news, this is one of those books that within time, once we have information on who's going to be in this show or this movie, then we will know if this book will eventually get picked up as option, and then the price of this book will go up, or it won't move at all, and it's just going to go trending downward. So there you have The Beauty. Our next book in the list is a book. It's actually a really popular book. I heard DJ Lynx was reading it, and he absolutely loved this book. So it is 4 Kids Walk Into a Bank. Now, what is this book about? This is actually a really cool concept. The concept of this story is a bank robber. He's quitting the business, and he had one final score. However, his kid doesn't want to do it, so his kid decides that she's going to do it. Let's see. A funnish crime caper about children. 11-year-old Paige and her weirdo friends have a problem. A gang of ex-cons needs her dad's help on a heist. The problem is those ex-cons are morons. If Paige wants to keep her dad out of trouble, she's going to have to pull off the heist herself, like Wes Anderson remaking Reservoir Dogs. And that's what this book is about. Now, this book has gained traction because it has been optioned, and Liam Neeson has been attached to be part of this particular film. This book came out back in 2016 for Black Mass Studio. And when it was number one, it was in September 1st of 2024. It had a top weekly sale of $93 at a CGC 9.8. And it sold about 38 units, so it wasn't a big time seller. The growth of this book was at 183%. The raw was most common at $18, while the slabs most common was at $85 at a 9.8. Let's take a look to see how this book has trended. As of right now, I see this book. You see, it's about $15. That was the last recorded sale back in November 29th. So it was just a couple of days ago. The book is tracking at $19 at a raw, and a slab is going for about $90. So that means this book has dipped. This book is not as popular as it once was. However, the concept is a good concept, and I could see this book eventually getting picked up. There's several variants to this book, and we could see that there was a recorded 404 recorded sales. The height of this book was back in September 3rd at $200, so it's dipped tremendously from that time. If you look at the raw comic sales, you could see from the sales data that $19 is the average for a near mint value, while $90 is the average. And you could see that the last recorded sales here were done back in September for a near mint plus. Back in November, this is the one that we were talking about, was $19, and it was about $20, $21 was the last sale. So this book is about the $20 price range, so it's affordable. A 9.6 sold for $50 back in the 2nd of November, so about a month from today, actually. And there was even a dollar sale for a 9.2. Someone got a deal for $1. That's an outlier right there. So what do I think about this book? I think this book is, again, treading downward, just like The Beauty is. However, I believe the concept of this book is a fun concept. It's definitely a book worth reading from Black Mass Studios. Pick up a trade. I do believe there are trades available. Go check it out. If you're picking it up for indie, it's an indie spec. So with all indie titles, it's the same thing. Indie books have high risk, but there's also high reward if it gets picked up. This is if the movie, like I said, Liam Neeson is involved. Take that with a grain of salt. The concept's good. It sounds like a comedy, action adventure. It's all depending on who's the cast that they're going to put in it. I'll pick it up for the read. I would like to read this. I'll probably read this digitally, but why not? Anyway, there you have it, guys. 4 Kids Walk Into a Bank. Those are your books. What are your thoughts of 30, 60, 90 for this week? Absolute Batman. It's going to stay hot. It remains hot even to this week. It made it to the top trending, so Absolute Batman is going to be hot. What do you think about The Beauty and 4 Kids Walk Into a Bank? What's your thoughts about those books, those 2 indie titles? Do they have potential to be the next big thing in movies? Only time will tell. I do believe 4 Kids Walk Into a Bank is a great story. Haven't read The Beauty. It sounds interesting, but it sounds very similar to The Substance that way. Check them out. There you have it, guys. That was 30, 60, 90. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more comic content. Check out these other videos for even more insight, and I'll see you at the next one. Excelsior.